so much. So we'll go into the session now, and hopefully we'll have a few more people join us and pop into the chat whereabouts they're joining us from. So welcome to the PRCA Global Series, featuring global experts and market spotlights tailored for our members around the world. I'm Jo Brophy, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's Insight session. I'm joined by our wonderful guest, Patrick. So Patrick is the founder of Melville Mental Solutions, brings expertise in three founding areas. So experience, professional expertise, and merging existing expertise. As a trained mental health professional, he leverages his skills to establish trust with organisations, drawing from 16 years of experience in the communications industry. In today's Insight session on mental health, navigating challenges and empowering your PR team, Patrick will guide us through the strategies for empowering your team while prioritising their mental health. This session is interactive, as you've already seen, so please feel free to use the Q&A box throughout to ask any questions directly to Patrick. But we've also allocated some time at the end for those questions. So to kick off, we'll begin with two short polls. So please do participate in that. So I will launch those polls now. So you should be able to see them on screen.
I see. I can't vote.
No, nor can I.
Yeah, please. It's a case of just sharing your thoughts. Of course, you're not being named. This isn't a workshop about selling your business or your services. It's just understanding where you are on your mental health knowledge and journey. And even by you taking part, that really makes a difference in what others will get away. This is a relatively new subject.
Absolutely. I think we have 90% that has participated in the poll. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Patrick. I'm going to disappear off screen, and I'll end this poll now, and I'll see you after the session for the Q&A section.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, lovely to be invited to give a small talk. We have about 30 minutes, of which 20 will be focused on my presentation, and then another 10 minutes or so, however long you want as well, for any questions. I'll have to say, I use my story to share what is mental health under the themes that I will present on a slide. But please do be assured that this is about you. This is not about me, so to speak. I will give tips, my experience. But as you know, in the PR industry, stories are a way to demonstrate the reasons and to use in a campaign to justify interest and, of course, usage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and it's my presentation. I will obviously come back to certain points, but if you've got any questions on the way, please, as Jo said, feel free to put any questions there. Okay. So just set up so we know. So this is the presentation, and as you could probably remember, this is about navigating the challenges. Okay, these challenges are massive in the PR industry. I'm going to share some out, but the focus is all about what can you take away. And of course, empowering your mind. And that's your mind, but also the people you're with. Whether you be in Glasgow, whether you be in the New Forest and other countries as well. Mental health is a very generic term, but of course the culture gets in the way and has an influence. So let me go on to the agenda. These are the takeaways. So I want you to be curious. I'll explain why. I want you to understand what influences your mind. I also will cover why we shouldn't ignore our mind. And what I say is focus on our resilience. I also say to be in the now. I'll explain why, but sometimes we get really distracted by certain things and we're not in the now. We don't appreciate, but also we get distracted from the work we have to do. And of course, what I love the fact is that I'm talking with the PRCA like yourselves, and you are a unique brand. That's something which is so underrated, despite that's the industry, one of the core drivers we live in. And the other thing is build your own circle of strength. And I'll explain what that is. These are the agendas, and I'm literally going to fly through in the next 20 or let's say 18 minutes. So you might not know who I am. Of course, there's a lot of trust, as Joe kindly mentioned, but you know, at the moment, I'm just a piece of digital words, aren't I? Who is Patrick Melville? Now, as I mentioned before, we like stories. Stories are a way to connect with people. My background is in mental health and in marketing as well, and PR. And I remember stories are a way to demonstrate a brand. And the key word is to build that trust. So whilst I will use the story, what you'll get is a very light top up of what I can do. And the next step would be for me to have a conversation with you. But for example, what I have learned in my experience is that we love stories. We are actually mentally made to like stories, whether or not we're in that story, because we're very social, we're tribal. When we were growing up as evolving as Homo sapiens, we had to support each other and hear stories. And of course, that's one of the reasons why gossip has such a strong role. It's a way of bringing the culture together as well as kicking people out. So I'm going to share my story to build that trust and to get the confidence that I have some idea of what I'm talking about. And hopefully when I suggest things to you, you might want to consider that. 1 second. Cool. It's just making sure noise. So one of the ways is showing my story, as I say. My story is that I used to work in advertising and PR. I spent 12 years running £1 million budgets, traveling around the world. I went to Paris and I lived there for a year. Then I started my consultancy. And then what I did was I actually was about to go and work in Asia with the FT. And then I was going to go via Hong Kong to work with an agency and then hopefully the US. But that didn't happen. In 2017, I was cycling in London and suddenly I fell off my bike. Suddenly, out of nowhere. Thankfully, I wasn't hit by a car, but I had to sort of crawl away and then sort out what was going on. I thought I was okay. I carried on in my work and had my own business, my young family, about to go on holiday. But I just wasn't feeling well. But I ignored it. And that's one of the key messages here. We shouldn't ignore what is mental health. It turned out that I was diagnosed 4 weeks later with a massive brain tumor here. For those of you who don't know, I'm an expert now because I had to learn what is a brain tumor. It turned out to be malignant, moving around. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a screen of it just to get that feeling, the truth and the trust. Out of nowhere, suddenly, bang, I had this moment. I was told, don't Google it. Classic PR mantra, don't Google it. Get that trust from experts. And that was a really tough moment because I was told, you need to get treatment. You need to stop everything you've been doing. I'm going to jump forward massively, but after a brain operation, radiotherapy, zipping around my mind for 6 weeks, for having chemotherapy for 2 years, I got this amazing news. My tumor had gone completely. My oncologist is still shocked. And also I see him every 3 weeks, 3 months. But the point is that I had a tumor and it disappeared. My point is that I had to learn about the mental side of my mind, my body. The physical side was being done, whereas mentally I was struggling. I was still catching up during that 2 year. And even now I have these little thoughts. And I'll explain a bit more. But the point is that this is how our mind works. I had to look into it. And how, again, that gets your trust of building this very small but relationship that I'm giving you now, I'm offering. So what I did since then is that I revamped my work to build, instead of marketing, but mental. So now I do, my company is called Melville Mental Solutions. And I've done this work in all these countries. For those of you who have connections or interests, I did something in January. I was in Kenya. On the left was Saracens and OMD Media, who have a PR group, and on the right was a financial broker. called part of IM in Nairobi. So again, I have done this globally, and that's why I'm so excited to be invited by Joe and PRCA to do this. I'm also involved in other parts of PRCA. This is something I would recommend you go and have a look at. This is called the PRCA Mental Health Toolkit. I've put it together with the groups because I'm the mental health expert. And what we do is that we do podcasts at the bottom. There are lots of links to resources, as well as official training. For those of you who might know, there's something called mental health first aiders. So in-house, in any business that you're in, you'll have people working to be the in-house first aider. So your colleagues will be trained to go and help other people. So I hope that makes sense as well. Again, I'm flying through it. Any questions, just email me and we'll go into that. But the lovely thing is that this is part of the PRCA's value and obviously passion. So this is what I do, just working up at 12 o'clock. So you can see research. I do research, workshops, in-house articles, podcasts, one-to-ones and training. We'll come back to a bit of that. But again, just a summary of what I'm talking about. Again, that trust. So the step one, I'm going to give you tips. Now, when I say tips, I want you to be curious. That's the first step. Be curious about what is mental health. Because if we don't have a training, I mean, I would like to ask you, but were you ever trained how to do mental health? Have a think. I was never taught. I was never taught at school what is mental health. So therefore, I had to jump to conclusions. The key first step, be curious. Really, what is it? Why is it? What is the mind? Also ask yourself those questions. You can have a lot of fun doing this because it's amazing how we are. And this is obviously a PR mantra. Be curious. That's what you're asking the client. Why should they have these? Why should you run a campaign with them? Why should you go into those media channels? Be curious. Now, I've got a really good example. If you can, it'd be lovely for you to contribute. You might have seen this amazing picture. 2015, this family were about to get married in the UK, and the mother of the bride was looking at buying a dress. She found something on the internet, this dress, and sent it to her friend saying, I'm not sure if these colors match me. I would love you, please, to write what 2 colors you can see here. Please do it. And it's amazing. And of course, you'll compare yourself with others. So in the chat box, please can you write what can you see in the 2 colors? Brilliant. So we can see black and blue, black and blue, black and blue. Oh, blue and black. Here we go. Well done, Hannah. Black and blue. Now, have you noticed? This is not a trick. Black and blue, blue. Okay. I hope you don't mind me mentioning what you've done. Oh, Joe as well. Gold and white. Hannah, gold and white. This is not a trick. What is amazing about this? This is how our mind works in a very simple but very strong way. Your brain will literally translate whatever goes in, your senses, your eyes, everything you have, it will translate. It's amazing. So in this story, it went global. 11,000 posts on Twitter in 1 minute. It went global because everyone was arguing. What is going on? What do you mean? You can't. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you, Katie. Well, people are saying, what do you mean? And I bet you're thinking, how can others see different colors? But as I say, that is how your brain translates your senses. And it's not just physical, but it goes into the mind. This is how, again, a tip for PR. When you're trying to get someone to buy your product or buy your service, what you're trying to do is to understand how their minds work, what will help them. Now, I do a separate workshop about this story, but it's just a little summary of being curious. Wow, this is not a trick. This is how your mind works. I suggest you look at the dress and come back maybe in the evening. You might see something different, but also ask people around you. What is it? Excuse me. It's amazing to see that. Now, what this is connected to is curiosity. You have a curious mind, okay? Be curious about it. Why does your mind think like that? Okay, brilliant. And thank you again for taking part. The definition, I would like you to write down, what do you think the definition is. Do you think it's a positive statement, neutral statement, or negative statement? Do you think mental health? Just write it down, please. Just do 1, 2, or 3. 1 for positive, 1 for neutral, and 1 for negative. And again, don't worry, please. This is about you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So well done, you've had a go. And if you got it right, well done. If you got it wrong, you've learned. The point here is that if we don't know the answer, 80% of my clients don't get it right. So therefore, how can they understand what mental health is if they don't understand literally what the definition is? Okay, thank you. And well done. So well done, Joe. So basically, you're not the only one who obviously took part. 50% of people got it right. Because mental health includes our emotions, emotional, psychological, and social well-being. What the key thing here is that's how we think, we feel, and we act. So if you don't understand that, then you can't necessarily look after yourself or talk about it or find ways in the right way. So hopefully one thing you've learned already in the session is mental health is a neutral statement. You're either healthy, positive, or you're ill, negative. It's like physical health. You pulled a muscle, you got a cold, you're ill. Yeah. So mental health is now what? Okay. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to go on. Now, I would like to literally give you 1 minute. Actually, I'll tell you what, we're going to come, because of timing, I do an exercise to get you to understand your feelings and thoughts. If there's time in the end, we can do it. But remember that the definition of mental health is that your feelings, your thoughts and behavior, they're moving all the time, especially feelings. Okay, now we understand what it is, then we can go for it, okay? So step 1, be curious. Step 2, understand what influences you. We are all unique, like a unique brand. What influences you will be different in different countries. Now, obviously, the big word here is culture. Because what they do, you might understand now what mental health is. It's neutral. But the challenge here, of course, is stigmas, which we hopefully have cleared a bit now since you kindly took part in the workshop. But at the same time, you can understand what a stigma is. And this is what for colleagues. It's a lack of knowledge. So you will make assumptions. Or it's a misunderstanding. Yeah. And of course, 9 out of 10 people with problems, mental health problems, perhaps your colleague or your family and friends, will say that a stigma will have a discrimination and a negative effect on their lives. So what the goal is with your colleagues is to help take away the stigmas. There'll be stuff done, but if there isn't, of course, it's knowledge that you know that. Now, I'm really focused on this. This really shone out to me when I was doing mental health stuff for the area, for the global PRCA group. It's a cultural stigma. Be aware of what stigmas are. Every culture has a different way. That's word. So I'm highlighted of looking at mental health. For many others, there's a growing stigma around mental health, and mental health challenges are considered a weakness. Are they a weakness? It's literally a physical health. Have you got a pulled muscle? No, of course it's not. You just got to look after yourself. But it's made harder. So I would say one of your goals is to help take away the stigmas in your organization and yourself. I know it's hard. In Kenya, for example, they had a different angle, for example, to Singapore, where I did also some work. People speak in different ways because of the cultural stigma. I'm aware of that. Okay. So I'm going to just fly through this. If you want to Google World Health Organization, you're not the only one. You're not alone, as I say. Okay. All these things are normal. I mean, obviously the fourth one down has $1 trillion lost in productivity. So be aware of that. It's worth putting the time. It's not nice to have, and I would put it further. It's a marketing tool. It's a commercial tool, like Mr. Client, I'm ready to manage the stress you're going to give me. Or Mrs. Client, we have the team involved. It's a really important way. And of course, recruiting, tell your HR. We have mental health sessions and well-being sessions set up to take away the stigma and help us deliver the work. Okay. So step 3, don't ignore your mind. Sometimes if we ignore our mind, then we get in the wrong way. So for example, a really good example is we resist stress. We resist worries. We just get on with it. The mind never forgets anything. Maybe you're not surprised. It archives everything. So if we resist and ignore anything, then it'll come back when we don't want it and then when it's stronger. What I suggest, and this is a lovely Banks, for those of you who've seen a very famous artist in London, you turn something into not resistance, but resilience. What can help you cope with the stress, not resist the stress and worries? What will help you build your resilience to manage those? So what is resilience? The ability of a person to adjust or to recover readily. Okay, what I like about this is that it's to adjust and recover. It's not saying you're going to be immediately well, but it's recover. Okay, so resilience is a really good thing. Step 4, be in the now. What we tend to do from the moment we open our eyes in the morning is that we tend to refer to tomorrow, today, future, what's got in store with the past. Now, that's not real, is it? You might have had a bad day yesterday. You might have had a bad conversation with a client or a colleague. It doesn't mean today you are, but your mind will automatically be defensive and say, right, watch out. It's a warning, but it's okay. It doesn't mean it is. But what this means is that we don't encourage, we don't like the now. So, for example, if you're stressed in a meeting and you want to be in the now, maybe your mind's worried about stuff, just rub your fingers. It takes you into the now. I'm here in the moment. Literally, rub your fingers. Or another one, if you've got time, take your shoes off and walk in, just go outside and walk in the grass, touch some grass, or literally touch a plant, because you're connecting in the now. These are really good. And it's amazing when you, even if you spend 2 minutes, I'm not saying 5 hours, 2 minutes, you come back. This is what I had to do before I started this workshop. I was like, okay, we're going to get it right. I haven't got long. Yeah. Literally touch your fingers or take your shoes off. There's a lovely tip, or find ways that you can help you to be in the now. A really good example that helped me. Can you see a rainbow? Have a look at the image. This is a view from the hospital where, oh no, from a hotel where I was talking with a friend while I was having my brain cancer treatment. And can you see the light, the rainbow? The rainbow, I was like, oh, nice. I was enjoying the now, but then I loved it more because I made the effort to enjoy, embrace the now. That rainbow was shining where I was having my operation. You can take what you want with it, but the main point is that I acknowledge that moment. I calm my mind, my feelings and my thoughts, and I put it into that moment. Use the now, take things off, distract yourself from not worrying about, the clutter that you'll have, literally 1 or 2 minutes. And then you can go back with less stress, a more positive mood to cope with whatever's happening in the day. Another one, don't compare. Please don't compare yourself with other people. That's why it's brilliant you guys took part in the chat, because you might have got it wrong. It doesn't matter. But don't compare. It's dangerous in mental health, because you might look at someone and think, oh, they're so strong, they don't get stressed. 1, you might not know, but 2, you're different. My point is that step 5, we are unique. Look at the brands here. Okay. You will see, when you look at it, you will see one brand, but that brand might not be the same brand that others in the talk are looking at. You are unique. I'm a mental health first aider. For example, I train people like yourselves or businesses to be a mental health first aider. One of the key things means if you're trying to help someone, you take your mind away. You don't compare your experience. So, for example, here, if you saw Zippo, don't assume that other people can see Zippo. You know what I mean? So, as a mental health first aider, which I could do training with, and I train people, you're taught to do that. But for yourself, don't compare yourself. Remember, you are unique. I mean, this is lovely. People, the good story. Twins are so different sometimes. Same body, but different mind, different culture. You are the same. Another tip, When I was undergoing my treatment, I went to this lovely research place, and they told me, what you want to do, the best people who respond to worries and stress and all this terminal cancer stuff is that be positive and have control. These were surgeons all around from America and stuff. So my point is, be positive and have control. Okay. That's actually not medical. Do you see what I mean there? It's their approach, their mental, and this means for you. There are things you can't control, but we don't focus on them. That stuff, and I'll give you some tips now. But be positive, because that literally has an impact on our mind. If we have longer, in my sessions, I do physical exercise to show that, like the feelings, thoughts, but I hope you understand what this means. Find ways to be controlled. I'm going to give you some tips. So the last point here is building your circle of strength. Okay, this is my website. So feel free, you can always go on and see, get some tips from there. But my point here is that how mental health builds comfort and control. Okay, these are the services I give. Now, this is where we tend to be. We all tend to focus on what annoys us and worries us. Yeah, what I'm saying is understand what the stress definition is, because we're guessing. Look at that word feel. You understand, it doesn't mean you are stressed. It means you're feeling. It's a warning sign. So that means understand that your stress should be controlled. It doesn't mean that you're going to fail in everything you do, but you control it. And I say reframe it to talk about your circle of strength. What can you control? What gives you positivity? That is exactly what the training, those points before, in your circle of strength. You'll have some things you do, some things you want to redo, something else, okay? So, for example, at the top, I will just point it out. Excuse me. So, for example, self-taught. What do? You can just do yourself. Go for a walk. You can just write something down which annoys you. You can talk to someone. What about in your company? Is there some service that they provide and say, hey, they might have someone you can talk to? Online, of course, you go online. You know, Google, there's a lot more out there. You got family and friends, talk to them, please. Yeah, sometimes if you keep your thoughts here, then they will get cluttered. And of course, professional medics. Sometimes companies, perhaps your own, will say, use them. And of course, there's communities and charities. So, for example, be specialists in a lot of areas. It could be your culture problem. It could be regarding a problem to do with your family, or whatever it is. Investigate it. Be curious, because these are available for exactly, and you might as well use them because they're there for you. I had to use them, and I realize now I do. I literally take myself away, and I do all these things because it helps me deliver the work I want to do. It's stressful. So I would like you now, please, and this is part of the kind of Q&A, but write down what helps you. Please, can you put in the chat box, what helps you in your circle of strength? It could be going for a walk. It could be listening to a song. It could be talking to someone. It could be using a tool or services. Please, could you write it in the chat box? Thank you, Polly. Thank you. Yeah. So what I'm saying is write these down. Yeah, going for a walk. Yeah. What I like is that you're talking about it in the office as well. That's really important, because you might have stuff at home, and this is in the UK, I know in other countries, this is flexible working. Yeah, opening up. Now, these are obviously quite interactive. I would also ask you to take, when you go away, is to think, what can you use also when you are trying to look in the now? Yeah, those are obviously short-term things. You can just go out. But what about if you're in the moment? What can you do just to calm your mind and not worry about something which might not have happened? Thank you. Talking. Talking is a really good one. Yeah. Deep breaths. Well done, Yana. Thank you so much. Deep breaths. Grounding activity. Yeah. I like that. Tick my to-do list. Yeah. And I would like to add to that, Tina, maybe when you write a list, put at the top, write my to-do list. And as soon as you finish, you tick that box. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, nice. Good. Exactly. You are individual and unique. Whatever, don't compare yourself. And it looks like thank you for sharing that. So this is some things to do internally, and which I do work on. Hugh, obviously, WHO, the World International Organization, do all these things. Managing training. You can come back to the recording, but you see managers, workers, and individuals. And I provide that. So one more thing is also, if you want to help someone, be aware of these 3 areas: active listening, empathy, and create boundaries. Those are really key skills to do. Okay, and that's what I do. So all these things that Joe kindly mentioned, that's what I do. And then, of course, I just want to summarize again how I do it. I've given you a lot of theory and hopefully encouragement, but the goal is to help you understand. If you want to know more, please do get in touch and I can add to it. We'll just have a chat, as I say, a free 30-minute chat. Okay, so be curious, understand all those things. Don't ignore your mind, be in the now. You are a unique brand and build your own circle of strength. Cool. And these are the last things. Don't ever go at yourself. You might try some of them, you might not. You might think, be patient, be positive, and practice. It'll help you build that resilience to manage whatever rubbish, whatever trauma, whatever annoyance you get, wherever you are in the world. And that's me. So I know I've gone over time, but thank you so much for taking part. That's the main thing, because, all of you who've taken part have really helped with the other people, not just me, because I'm sure in some way you're closer. But I do have the experience, the expertise, the passion, and the story to help. So please do get in touch. I'll hand over back to
Thank you so much, Patrick. That was an incredible session. We have a question. Again, please do, if you have any questions for Patrick, please do use the Q&A. You can ask questions anonymously. We do have an anonymous question here. What are some effective strategies to ensure my team remains highly productive while also maintaining great mental health in the workplace?
Well done. I think there are a couple of things that come to mind, and they come back to like a bit of this. The reason I'm doing this different ways is finding out what is the link. So maybe it could be asking a question. It could be having one-on-ones. It could be, depends how your team is split. Is anyone you can have this conversation with? And of course, it's finding out what happens. You're right to think about people need to be looked after, but where are you? Are the services used? And I think you can be open about it, because you remember my point is how mental health is a neutral statement. Perhaps in your company meeting, you can say, hello, I heard this on last Thursday. Mental health is being a positive, neutral, negative. Get people to write it down, perhaps. You see what you're educating them. You're working with them. You're not telling them what to do. I hope that helps as well. And of course, it could be the managers. There's finding the causes to help prevent them slip down. But showing your care and being honest is another one. Being humble, and that's what you do as a mental health first aider. You're telling the other person, I don't know how to, your situation. I'm not comparing myself. What can you do? Yeah, please feel free to get in touch.
No, that's brilliant. And I suppose following on from that, one of the conversations that we had in a previous session, particularly with our PRCA Africa members, was the difference between culture and mental health, and how sometimes people can misunderstand actually a culture of an office for having mental health problems with mental health, when actually it's a cultural thing in the workplace. So how do you determine as a employer and employee whether actually the space that you're in perhaps isn't for you, as opposed to it's an issue, it's your issue, it's your mental health issue that you are struggling with and need help. It's actually a cultural issue for the office.
One of the key things is to write it down. So if we keep it in our minds, then our minds might translate it in a way which is not relevant. So that's where feelings come in. Feelings can mistranslate what's going on. Does that make sense? So my point is that I suggest that you write it down, log it, and then you're going to come back to it. And then what you're going to do is to be able to review it. Is it really what you're thinking? And of course, but what the good part is that you're looking at is that you've got the two sides here. Is it you? Or obviously, is it the culture? Is it not what suits you? Or is it maybe something that can be done? What can you control? What is the cause? I hope that makes sense in terms of not doing it immediately, not jumping ahead. Does that make sense? But it's actually,
Absolutely.
and maybe talking about it, a trusted source. Because again,
Absolutely.
for example, your feelings might tell you, I've got to have a chat with someone now. You've got to step back and then go from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we can take that out of the office as well. when we're dealing with our children or our relationships or the outside world, just taking that step back and really understanding what is the issue and really defining what that is. We have another question here sent in anonymously. We've had a drive recently for training for mental health first responders, and I'm considering furthering this to MHFA. Sorry, the letters jumped about there for a minute. What do you think are the main differences in skills between the two roles?
So I just want to be clear. So you're saying, what would the roles be? Would they be, so as official training?
So mental health first responders, and I'm considering mental health first aiders, I presume the FA stands for. Are there differences between the roles and differences in skills?
Yes. I think one is deeper. One is actually more accredited as well. So the good thing is that companies now are investing more as like I mentioned before, to use this service as a marketing tool, a recruitment tool, and a commercial tool, saying it's not just a nice to have. So I would say look into the mental health listing. I'm very happy to have a follow-up chat because this is a global initiative. But what you're doing is that you're getting more accreditation and confidence. The thing I would say is that you need to have a group in the company who continually chat about what their experience is. The awareness one is more about nice to have, and it's not so official. So again, I'm trying to summarize it. Obviously, we don't have so long, but the goal is to really have that official training, but bring that group together to keep learning, but also to justify the value of the cost. That's one of the problems that mental health has had. People think it's a nice to have. I get the first thing to get cut. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you when we're happier and when we've got more money. Well, to get to that point, Patrick, some people sometimes need to come to me. So I hope that sort of gave a flavor of what the answer is. But please do get in touch. Very happy, as I say, that free follow-up.
Absolutely. And so what you've just summarized, is that the responders or the MHFA? Because I'm not quite sure, and I'm sure some of our viewers aren't quite sure which one is which.
So responders, in my experience, are the ones who it's more of a first step. What is a mental health first aider? But I don't think you're officially trained. There are a couple of organizations that do it. So again, I would have to look into it. But because there are different sort of brands that can offer that. But in my initial thoughts are that there's a difference between, let's say as simple as a couple of hour training versus 2-day training. And of course, you get more from the 2-day training.
Absolutely. And so that's the mental health first aiders that are certified and trained a lot more. And so that's the difference.
If you look at my website, you can see it's called Mental Health First Aid England, but please don't be deceived. It's a global business with franchises all around the world.
Absolutely. And we did verify that there are pretty much everywhere the PRCA operates, there is some franchise of the mental health first aiders in every part of the world. So that is fantastic for our global audience. And if there are any further questions at all, I think we've got something in the Q&A. No.
Well, if you want to hear my details as well, please do. And again, if my experience with cancer, if it's a case of talking to someone, if it's a case of, I get invited to speak to people who have got traumas, to help them get help, or it could be just for yourself, however it works, or why would my company want to invest, or how could we get this moving forward, like the training, let me know, please. I offer different things. It's very organically grown. And of course, you've got the stuff on the MHFA England website. Go and have a look at that. The Mental Health Toolkit.
We do indeed. And one of those things at the end of this session, we'll edit the session. We'll just put a bit of intro music at the start and at the end, and then we'll pop it onto our YouTube channel for our members. So we will send you the link to that. So everybody who's registered for this event will get the link to the recording of this session so that you can showcase it perhaps in your workplace or watch again, or for any bits that you might have missed. And along with that will be the deck that Patrick used today, and any further links, things to Mental Health Toolkit, Patrick's email address, and the link to Patrick's consultancy as well will be on that email.
And so, also, please feel free to LinkedIn with me.
Absolutely.
I'll be coming to your country or your city, and happy to pop in and have a coffee, or maybe online or Zoom.
Fantastic. Well, we will give you the gift back of time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the next Global Insight series. Thank you.